I'm Walter Burtynski, co-founder of B3K Digital, and I'm thrilled to be conversing with Ed Burtynsky. In this time of the pandemic, you've put together a completely new show.
It is a direct result of the pandemics. While going up to around the Bruce Peninsula, I did go through an area called the Beaver Valley. And then I was up there, and I brought my camera with me, the latest camera that got from you, the Phase, and I thought I was going to kind of start to learn how to focus stack with and do a lot of work with it. I wanted to go deeper into the menus and get really comfortable because I only had it for about 6 months and I was shooting in Africa with it. And I thought, here's a great time to do it. And I thought, well, I'm here as a result of the pandemic, and why not just start going back to my roots? So I started looking at nature, because I often thought that when I look at the work that I did, which I kind of see as a prolonged lament for the loss of biodiversity in nature to our success. I always thought that I wouldn't have had that kind of empathic feel for nature had I not actually fallen in love with that natural order to begin with. Right. So I needed to have
that basis to
you have to understand what's being lost. That you have to feel that there is a loss occurring. So this is really coming full circle.
This is kind of like the frame of reference done at the end instead of the beginning. One of the specifics that come to mind is that you've got unbelievable complexity in these images. There's a certain way you've approached color and shape. It seems to me like a lot of the work you've done up to this point has given you the strength to deal with this, because this is a wildly difficult subject.
One of the things I really enjoyed about this project was that these things aren't evident, that you don't just see them. You have to kind of be in the present and you end up almost feeling them. This one, it's interesting when I look at this one, I went back about 4 times at different light. Nothing beat the first version of it. Even after I went back 4 times and shot it 4 more times. And there is something about being in the flow, I think, being in that moment where you first discovered. And what I recognized, because when I looked at and compared them, I realized that not all overcast days
are the same.
Right. So there's heavy overcast and mild overcast and very light overcast, and each of them delivers a different light, and that light really allows, different lights allow different colors. So you have to be in the moment to see the light, to see the color, to see that, and it isn't easily replaceable. So to me, it was such a real treat to go back from a way of shooting where, like when I go to the Three Gorges Dam, or when I go to Norilsk in the farthest reaches of Siberia, it's a hellish process to get there. It's a year and a half of negotiating to get into this closed city. Whereas here, for almost 3 months, every morning I'd get in, walk or get in my vehicle, and I'd go to an area that I know was rich in this kind of subject, and I just walk and look and stop and think. And when I look at doing work that I've been doing for the Anthropocene Project or whatever, it was like 95% perspiration and 5% inspiration, and here it's 95% inspiration, and the only perspiration is walking around with a camera slung over my back.
So what's your favorite image?
Well,
let's go to your favorite
images for different reasons. I really like this one because if you look at it, it's very much kind of like painting. I mean, what I'm looking at is I'm thinking of the abstract expressionist movement, like a Jackson Pollock.
So you're talking about the balance of color and the flow of color.
Yeah, and so when you're standing there looking at it, in fact, when I was taking this picture, a policeman was coming by, and he stopped, and he's kind of, and he says, "Everything okay?" And I go, "Yeah," and then he stops and he goes, "What are you looking at?" There's no like cow or in the field or anything like that. And I'm going, oh, it's just really like the mesh of it, the complexity of it. And I think on this one, it was with the longer lens. And the longer lens actually worked well because I can compress it. And then it was also the focus stacking that allowed me to use a longer lens. And then I also wanted to optimize I didn't want to go to the smallest aperture, so I'm, optimizing at f11, which is your best part of your lens, and I'm focus stacking, and I can choose where I want, so I would go to the very back to the front, but when I then selected 5 or 4 or 6 images or all 10, I could have gone all the way sharp to the back, but it was too confusing, so I would play with where I want the focus to fall off.
So you created the whole range, but then you chose what
I chose where it made sense, because sometimes, like in this case, I went all the way. So in this case, you can see all the way back there, which is, that's probably 80 feet away, or no, maybe 100 feet away. Yeah. And this is like, a couple of 3 feet away.
3 feet, right.
So there's no way I could make this image without stacking it. There was even if you went down to your smallest f-stop, you're not going to get it.
You're not going to get that.
You're not going to get that.
No.
So I kind of understood that now for the first time I had this tool that I can, use a longer lens, get focus to the depth that I want. For me, it was like also somewhat new to photography, because if I would have shot this with 8x10, there's no way I would get this shot. There's no way I can do this with it. Even 8x10 would probably give me the quality of color and sharpness, but not the depth. Interesting thing is that now that I'm in, this level of resolution with these lenses, it's kind of like you go up to it, and this is like a 60x80 print, so it's a fairly large print. And you can go right in there, and there is no collapsing. The grain isn't betraying itself in any way, and it's a combination, I think, of the resolution of the camera, and I've now jumped from like I used to do these with LightJet, a 60x80 LightJet, and now these are on a 60-inch Epson printer.
You can get crazy close, and it looks fantastic.
Yeah, you can dig in as far as you want with your eyes, and it doesn't break down. It won't break down. So to me, there's something about experiencing. And people used to, when I used to show 8x10 prints of the quarry work in the early '90s, and people would look at it, and they don't know why they're so fascinated by it. Because they just don't
fall into them. There was just so much resolution. But
and everything is just so articulated and is visually so present that there's a presence to it and a dimensionality to it. It's almost like a three-dimensionality to it that you get. And it is about that. As I have often said, the thing I love about photography is it's the uber realist tool. And all the realist painters had to go and find something else to do, so they became impressionist painters. Because the camera did such a good job with reality. The picture doesn't occur to me always. It's not, like I think I spent at least a half hour just standing and walking, standing, walk, and that's how you get there. Is that it doesn't say, "Oh, here I am." It's kind of like you have to kind of think your way into the picture. And I think I tried different lenses and nothing worked, and then I tried this, I tried that, and finally, after, like I said, over a half hour of trial and error, I find it, and then, this is a situation where the clouds are coming in and out and coming in and out. So then, of course, I find it, and then the cloud disappears, so then it forces you to wait I think I had to wait another hour for a cloud to hit again, because it didn't work in the sun. And that's why being in front of the prints is really important, because when you're standing in front of a 60x80 print, you're actually having a body experience with it. And now when you're looking at it on the phone, you're not having a body, it's only cerebral. This is a real body experience, and when you fall in, you go and you say, okay, this just keeps going, and it keeps going. I can go as deep as I want to go and pull back.
You can see the mention in the moss. You can see where the wet marks are on the bark. Right?
So it has that different readings at different relationships to the print. That it reveals different things at different distances, which is the dynamic of it. And even right from the very beginning of my work, that was always, I called it, that I always wanted to have the work to have what I call the 6-inch view. So you can go right up and go, okay.
What's it look like at this?
But it also has the, stand back and look at the whole thing.
It's got the 4 or 5 foot view. It's got the 12 foot view.
Yeah.
To my mind, this is an extension of the fact that you've moved into a new set of equipment. It was about a year and a half ago you moved into the Phase 1 IQ 150 product, and the Blue Ring lenses, XL, all stuff made for the sensors, kind of a first in the medium format world. How did that affect us?
Meeting with you, you said, the lenses that you talked about can be shot wide open, and they're edge to edge sharp, and the ASA was able to take me up into the 4 or 5, 600 ASAs and still, not be suffering in terms of grain. Right. So when I started to look at all that, it made sense for me to move to this, to doing something like this. So that's when it made sense for me to move out of one system and move into this one. When you told me that Schneider, worked specifically to match the optics to the back, I went, aha, okay, now, I went back to the memory of that 120 lens, and I said, well, they make great glass, and truly, well, we're witnessing it right here. This is a real chance to really practice that.
It's a remarkable progression, but to me it feels, in some ways, much like the 8x10 you used to shoot.
Mm-hmm. Well, it feels like 8x10. I mean, I was thinking about, well, if I did shoot this 8x10, well, number one, as we talked earlier, there's no way I could get the kind of control of depth of field on an 8x10 to begin with. I would never have that level of control. But would it be better? Would it? I don't think so. I think we're now bumping up against what an 8x10 would be in this.
From a craft technical application of it as a tool.
Yeah, which is a combination, I think, of the optics, the back, the software that allows you to manage the tonal scales and all of the resolution and all that, and then the printing technique, which is now an inkjet versus, so it really, moves everything into a level. And this is the latest 12-color inkjet printer, so you're getting a dynamic range that now exceeds what the Type C prints used to be with So now you're actually into a color space that was impossible. Everything I do is to this, I do wall work as an artist. Everything aims to the wall.
It's to that print
it's
experience,
to that print.
the physical
it's
impact
to that
on my
experience.
body.
Everything else, books, online, is all surrogate experiences to this. To give you an idea what it is, but it doesn't replace having to be in front of the real thing. And that's what I've always wanted to say. I always wanted as an artist to say, there's a reason to go and look at the originals, because you can never get that experience. You can kind of get the idea of what I'm doing, but you're not going to get the experience of what I'm doing.
What does it mean to be a photographer?
There's it's still magic to me. From the very first time where I had an 8x10 print of my dog that I shot jumping in the snow when I was 11, and I got my first camera, and the magic of the picture emerging from that developer under that orange light, and I was like, okay, this is it, this is magic, there still is that sense of excitement and the reveal.
I think that really ties us up and brings this kind of to a conclusion. So, Ed, this is awesome. Thank you very much.
Well, Walter, thanks for having me.